Solitude, remorse, isolation, and gloom. These are just some of the words that come to mind when you think of Silent Hill. Even if you've never played the games themselves, it's almost impossible to have avoided any mention or screen time of the series. There are many works that have derived inspiration from Silent Hill, such as Cry of Fear, Layers of Fear, Alan Wake, and The Evil Within. Some may regard Silent Hill as the best horror game of all time, but when you notice, when they mention Silent Hill, they really only speak of Silent Hill 2 or Silent Hill 3. Whenever Silent Hill is mentioned, I rarely ever hear people talk about the first game. I mean, just look at Silent Hill 2 getting an entire remake on modern systems before Silent Hill 1, the game that started it all. When you look at modern prices for the physical copies of the series, the Silent Hill 2 and 3 are obscenely expensive, while a copy of Silent Hill 1 isn't really cheap either. It's nowhere near as high as the other two, despite it being the oldest one. Looking for Silent Hill video essays on YouTube, it seems that everyone has talked about Silent Hill 2, and some people have even talked about Silent Hill 3, but more people are talking about Silent Hill 4, and barely anyone has mentioned Silent Hill 1. And there are a lot of things within those videos that do exist that people have missed or just haven't mentioned. But where did this all begin? What led to the creation of Silent Hill to begin with? It all started in September of 1996. Team Silent, a small group of staff within Konami, wanted to produce a game that would be successful in the United States. Konami wanted the game to be originally profit-driven, but after months of the developers not being too sure of what direction to take with the game, Konami backed off and allowed them to have more individual freedom on the game. Or so I assume. This isn't exactly explicitly stated anywhere. The staff had decided to ignore Konami's plan, and they wanted to make a horror game that would appeal to the emotions of players. So, they opted for the psychological horror approach. Director Keiichiro Toyama created the game's world and individual scenarios. He didn't have much experience with horror, but he was fascinated with the occult. Much of this influence came from the David Lynch films, and some of the names and designs of the enemies within Silent Hill and the puzzles were primarily based off of books that would be enjoyed by Alessa, who we'll get into later, including The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle and Lewis Carroll's Alice Adventures in Wonderland. Fictitious religious items in the games also used various religions as a basis. Take for example the spirit-dispelling Aglaophotis, which is said to be a medicinal herb on a similar name in nature to the Kabbalah from Jewish mysticism. The Seal of Metatron, referred to as Dahlia by the Mark of Samael, references the angels Metatron and Samael. Or the Falros, which was taken from the Megaton? The Megaton? That word. A book on magic said to have been compiled by the writings of King Solomon. A lot of varied inspiration from a ton of different sources can make for a really compelling story, while also making a story fairly confusing, which is exactly what they were going for, as they wanted the players to figure out the hidden meanings and symbolisms inscribed everywhere in the game could mean. One of the things that made Silent Hill so popular was its soundtrack. Akira Yamaoka is a very talented artist that has made some of the most iconic soundtracks in the entirety of gaming history, capturing that feeling of being alone, in a deep depression, stuck in the fog of your own mind. It really sits so well with what Silent Hill does. He makes the most out of his own creativity using sounds like real-world dentist drills and tons of synthetic sounds to create the most goosebump-inducing soundtracks to hit the soul. Midwich Nightmare being the perfect example of this, clanging sounds and the rustic synthetic themings of a beast screaming just to send a chill down your spine while you walk the isolated walls of Otherworld Midwich Elementary. While on the complete opposite end, you have the elegant and soft Acceptance, a melancholic piano ringing through the dark synthetic drums and the eerie sound of a nostalgia gone by. Silent Hill was finally released for the PlayStation 1 in 1999 and received rather favorable reviews for the time. Having sold over 2 million copies during this time, Silent Hill was compared to Resident Evil, which was considered the holy child of the horror game genre in this moment. Boba Fett of GamePro labeled Silent Hill a shameless but slick Resident Evil clone, and someone clearly didn't play the game properly. Other reviewers at the time called it a near-perfect sim nightmare, and many felt that this was Konami's answer to Capcom's Resident Evil. One of the biggest things Silent Hill did to differentiate itself from Resident Evil was use real-time 3D environments. Compared to the pre-rendered environments found in Resident Evil, due to the PS1's hardware limitations, they had to do something to reduce the pop-in effects of the map from rendering in. And after a ton of experimentation, they added fog. Excellently, this fog worked miraculously to cover up the limitations of the PS1 at the time, while also adding onto that claustrophobic feeling of being isolated and overall adding to the game's now iconic atmosphere. Seriously, ingenious game design. Silent Hill follows Harry Mason, who's looking for his daughter, Cheryl Mason, who went missing after a car crash. This is explained in the game's opening cutscene when you first boot it up. The opening track brings you in immediately to Silent Hill's charm. A constant melodic Spanish guitar and violin reels you in before it turns into this trip-hop-esque beat that makes you just bob your head alongside it. The interesting thing is about this cutscene is that we never see these cutscenes in the game. I'm not sure as to why this is, but I can only assume this is meant for the player to kind of get an idea of what's going on. Even then, it's very cryptic. Once you hit the new game, a small cutscene plays of Harry waking up from the crash and finding Cheryl missing. He immediately gets out of the car to look around for Cheryl, and after taking a few steps forward, you see her running away in the distance.
Is that Cheryl?
You end up following her phantasm into this backyard alleyway through a gate. "Beware of dog," a small sign says. Once you enter the gate, blood stains the ground and guts are strewn about. I honestly shudder to think of the poor fate that this animal suffered. Akira Yamaoka's genius is really striking with this track, Led Into Madness, as it starts with this brooding build-up and a resonant bass that just sets the most ominous tone possible. Betwixt the suffocating fog, it just kind of sets you up for dreaded anticipation. The minimalist piano and synthesizers produce chilling mechanical hums that create an otherworldly environment. And as Harry follows down the alleyway, the camera twists and turns, rising above the metal pipelines before gliding back down. And immediately, you can take notice of something that Silent Hill does differently. It attempts to make its strong impression of camera usage with unique angles and experimenting with tilted camera views. Although unfortunately, this is not done much throughout the game, and it's only done a handful of times. Harry enters through the second gate and the skies darken. He brings out a lighter and turns it on. Better than nothing, I guess. As you walk down the rest of the alleyway, the creaking sound of something spinning is heard off in the distance, and as you approach it, it's a wheelchair. One wheel spinning in the air, and right beyond that, a bed with someone or something in it, covered in blood seeping into the ground. I'll honestly just let the rest of the scene speak for itself.
What is this? What's going on here?
Immediately after questioning what's going on, Harry is ambushed by 3 small creatures holding knives. We get no context of what these things are, but it's certainly not good. As you try to frantically run back into the entrance, you find that it's now blocked. Gated fenceways block your path and you're left trapped. As the creatures eventually kill you, the game gives you a short but charming opening cutscene of Harry waking up in a convenience store and Sybil Bennett sitting before him.
Was I dreaming?
How do you feel?
Oh, like I've been run over by a truck. But I'm alright, I guess.
Glad to hear it. You from around here? Why don't you tell me what happened?
Wait a second, I'm just a tourist. I came here for a vacation. I just got here. I don't know what happened. I'd like to find out myself. Have you seen a little girl? Just turned 7 last month, short, black hair. My daughter.
Sorry. The only person I've seen in this town is you.
Where is everybody?
I'd tell you if I knew, believe me. But from what I can tell, something bizarre's going on. What's your name?
Harry Mason.
Sybil Bennett. I'm a police officer from Brams, the next town over. The phones are all dead, and the radio too. Hold it. Where do you think you're going?
My daughter. I've got to find her.
No way. It's dangerous out there.
In that case, I need to find her now. Cheryl's my little girl.
Sybil, a police officer, decides to give you, a civilian, a gun. And considering you both just met, I have no idea what is going on through Sybil's head here. Is that protocol? Regardless, having any way of defending ourselves is better than having nothing at all. And while we're left to our own devices, we encounter a few things on our countertop. Our first melee weapon, a knife, a medicine drink, and a save station. You'll see these little red notepads spread throughout the game, and that's how we save our progress. Right before we walk out the front door, the radio in the room decides to start making a bunch of noise. When we walk up to it and investigate, this huge flying pterodactyl-like creature bursts through the window, and we have a first real goal. Kill it. These guys are called air screamers, and these are one of the more common enemy types in the game. Once it's dead, we make our way out of the convenience store, and we don't really have a direction to go. As you gander, you'll notice that the roads are blocked off as they've been completely destroyed, and realistically you only have one option, to go back into the direction that you were in. Down the alleyway that you had originally died in, you find a steel pipe, your second and primary melee weapon for now, and a note from Cheryl reading, "To school." Harry presumes that Cheryl must be at the school, which is then marked on her map, and of course, like with any horror game, getting there won't be a simple walk in the park. Like I said earlier, all the roads are blocked, so how can we really get there? Well, if you walk to the end of one of the destroyed roads, you'll find some blood on the floor with a note that says Doghouse on Lewis Street. Throughout this time, we've seen another common enemy type, the Groaner. Essentially, really aggressive dogs. When you go and visit Lewis Street and stop by the doghouse, you'll find a key taped to the top of the house, and upon opening the front door, you'll come to this oddly yet calm living room and kitchen. As you reach the back of the house, there's a door with 3 locked keys. Yeah, just as I expect, we're not going to Midwich just yet, we have to collect a few things first. Next to the door you can find a map that contains the locations of the 3 keys. Now there's one in an abandoned police car near the destroyed road, the Key of Lion. These keys are a reference to the Wizard of Oz, as the lion has to leap over a chasm with Dorothy, and lions are a symbolism of courage, which can be compared to being a police officer. Another key in the back alleyway of a basketball court seems to have had a field day with a dog head. That's called the Key of Woodman. The Tin Woodman in the Wizard of Oz had to decapitate a pack of wolves in the book. So, severed dog head. And finally, the final key is next to another destroyed road called the Key of Scarecrow. I can't really speak on the symbolism here as I don't quite understand, and it's a bit of a stretch, so we'll just skip this one. Getting to this key, however, gave me a lot of anxiety, as I felt that those little bits of 2x4 that are holding you up would have broken on the way back. First time I played through this game, it gave me a pretty big sense of anxiety. I really thought there was going to be like a cutscene or something of Harry falling through and just barely making it out the other side. Now that you have all the 3 keys, you can head back to the doghouse and make your way out the back door. Once you step through, the skies darken again, and you'll see this happen a few more times throughout the game. During the night, enemies tend to be more aggressive and there are more of them around. So to be honest with you, the best way to get around this is by turning off your flashlight, as most enemies will simply ignore you as long as you don't run right next to them if your flashlight is turned off. Walking will also help immensely, and this of course will be a giant help throughout the entirety of the game. As you finally make your way into Midwich Elementary, I can finally talk about my favorite level of the game. During my first playthrough of this game, Midwich had me stop, pause, and be absolutely terrified to move forwards. Examining my surroundings, trying to gather courage. You know, I haven't really mentioned much about my first playthrough. Oh, I guess we'll pause for the time being. I never played any of the Silent Hill games growing up. I was always scared to check them since horror games always filled me up with so much anxiety I'd end up throwing up or just feeling sick. And I was like that for a lot of years. Recently, however, I ended up meeting this really awesome person, and after a few months of talking, she had convinced me to play through the Silent Hill games with her, and so I did. I played them in chronological order, I want to say. There isn't really an order to these games besides Silent Hill 1 and 3, but yeah, I played Silent Hill 1, then Silent Hill 3, and then Silent Hill 2. I still haven't played Silent Hill 4, The Room, as I've heard mixed things about it and I haven't decided to properly embark down that path. But anyways, I ended up falling in love with the series and its charm, and always finding myself listening to Akira's music and falling in love with the eternal fog that is Silent Hill. I really wish I had recorded my first reactions because, man, it would have made for like a perfect first time video, but yeah. Back to where we left off. Once you enter Midwich, the map of the school is in the lobby to the left. The moment you step foot through the lobby, the droning of Akita's next track begins, immediately filling the atmosphere with this foreboding trepidation. As you explore, some of the rooms don't have any track whatsoever, forcing you to sit in complete silence. In one of the rooms, you find a disturbing image of two people hung up by a wall next to a door with 3 slots in it. I don't know who drew it, but this is certainly in bad taste. As for who would put a picture like this in a school is beyond me, but yet again, this is Silent Hill, so this is probably some form of Alessa's conscious come to be. As you begin to explore, you'll find a similar enemy type that we've encountered early on. These guys are the creatures with the knives. They're known as Grey Childs, and they're the main enemy type that we'll find here besides some roach-like creatures that can be quite annoying. Those are called creepers. What I absolutely love about Midwich is its ambiance. The first time you go through this place, you'll be very lost. Most doors being locked or barred in some way or form will have you explore every nook and cranny to find the next clues to where you can go. They really bumped up the creep factor here, because man, this place gives me goosebumps every time I play through it. To make things worse, between Akita's tasteful joists and ambiance and the creepy bathroom scene, comes Silent Hill's most iconic room, the locker room. As you enter the room, this banging can be heard from the other side. As you wake your way around, a single locker can be seen bouncing around, and as you open it, well, that didn't last long. Should have stayed in there, I guess. Nothing was in the locker either, so what was the purpose of this room exactly? Even though I've speculated and I've done research, I really can't find any solid ground on which to conclude, so I'll just go ahead and say that they added this room solely to bewilder the player. Let's talk about the first puzzle. When you get to the reception area, there are 3 notes that you can interact with. The first one reads 10 o'clock, Alchemy Laboratory. Gold in old man's palm, future hidden in his fist, exchange for Sage's water. In the lab equipment room, you find a chemical, and when you go next door to the chemistry lab, there's a statue of a hand holding what seems to be a golden object. If you use the chemical on the hand, it drops the gold medallion, which can be slotted into the downstairs courtyard in one of the 2 slots on the clock tower. When returning to the reception area, you can read the second note, 12 o'clock, a place with songs and sound. A silver guidepost is untapped in lost tongues, awakening at the ordained order. The room it's referencing is obviously the piano room. Now, I'll go ahead and say it, this has to be the most convoluted puzzle I've ever seen in a video game. I genuinely could not figure it out on my own, and I had to get help from my guide, who was helping me along my first playthrough. Seriously, without the internet or a physical guide, I'm really not sure how people got through this the first time around when it originally came out. But essentially, the puzzle has you read through a riddle that revolves around 5 birds. One landing further or farther back than the rest. When you go to inspect the piano, 12 keys are shown and there are 5 keys that don't make any sound. Now, Going into this with no context can be extremely confusing if you don't pay attention to its very specific wording. The poem is titled A Tale of Birds Without a Voice. So naturally, if you don't think the title is important, you can really miss out on what the puzzle could mean. At any rate, once you solve the puzzle, you get the silver medallion, which can be once again returned to the clock tower to advance time. Now we can advance to the next section. Inspecting the clock tower, we see that the time now has advanced to 5 o'clock. When returning to the reception, upon reading the final note, darkness that brings the choking heat. We're on to the final puzzle, which is probably the easiest puzzle in this section, if you even want to call it that. You go down into the basement and you press a button. That's it. From there you make your way back to the clock tower, and you'll walk and climb through this very small space that'll lead you back into the courtyard?
Where am I?
Yeah, even Harry's weirded out here. Welcome to the other world, where things are rusty and you're reminded to go get your tetanus shot because the whole place looks as if you so much rub something the wrong way you'll get infected. This is essentially the mirror dimension of sorts of the Silent Hill franchise, and it's a staple throughout the games. Things get flipped upside down and are more chaotic, so to speak. The halls of the school are now full of chains and gates, and everything's boarded up in some way or form. The long hallways are blocked, and you're forced to go through the classrooms if you want to make your way through the halls now. This section is fairly simple, and it doesn't take super long to get through, but I just want to talk about Akira's genius again. The instrumental piano being slammed and the animalistic growling and screeching that's played is just so jarring and genuinely took me aback the first time I heard it. I thought I was being hunted down by some enemy that the radio wasn't picking up. Chills down the spine for sure. In every room you visit, there are chains on the walls and roofs of the school. Heading into one of the rooms finds you in this strange but small room with gated fences that are almost blocking you in, giving you this uneasy claustrophobic feeling. Long tables with straps on them? These dolls that are hung up in an almost crucified style and small playing blocks strewn about. There's a small pink ball that can be picked up on one of the tables, and this is a key item for later. But this room is really interesting because we don't see other rooms like this. It's just this one. We'll come back to discuss this room later in the video, but for now, I'll let you guys have your own interpretation of what this could all mean. Upon entering one of the classrooms on the left side, you can find a picture card. This is our key to progress to the other side of the school, and from here, you're going to be next to the 2 bathrooms. The one on the left can teleport you into a weird portion of the school that's completely inaccessible, and the one on the right gives you our second ranged weapon, the shotgun. After entering the classroom and making your way into the following room, there's a table full of phones and some bullets on a chair. When you go to interact with the phone, nothing happens, but as you leave the room,
Daddy? Help me! Daddy? Where are you?
Cheryl!
Cheryl seems to have tried to make contact with us in some way or form, and finally we make our way back to the infamous locker room. This time in Otherworld, once you enter the room, the banging from earlier is now more frequent and more aggressive, something desperately trying to claw its way out of that locker. But upon opening it, there's nothing inside. Well, that's a waste. The first time I got hit with this jump scare, I almost dropped my controller as I wasn't expecting it. and my friend was on the call laughing so hard while I just stayed paused, holding my face as I also started laughing. I actually couldn't believe I got spooked by something so simple, but that's just the thing. I mean, up until this point of the game, there's been no cheap jump scares, nothing popping out at us or anything like that. It's been 100% environment and ambiance, and it's so good on the developers for breaking the tension for a moment. To continue, we have to pick up the library reserve key from the fallen child that fell out the locker. Now, you don't have to go to the library room, I'm pretty sure, but if you've never played this game before, I'd recommend it. You end up reading the story about a hunter that kills a lizard, and the whole thing is a giant analogy for the boss that we'll be fighting pretty soon. Upon exiting the room, we find that the classrooms to our left are locked, and we finally have to make our way to the rooftops to get the final bit of progression to lock this whole place behind us. Here, we'll find a rather simple problem. There's a key in the drain, and to get it out, we have to flush it out with the water. The problem is that there's a hole in the corner of the water that drains from. If we block it with the rubber ball, we can flush out the key, which will drain out into the courtyard below. Once you pick up the classroom key, we can make our way back to that locked classroom and open it. Once we do, we can finally make our way back downstairs and into the basement where the storage room gives you a few supplies, and finally make our way to the last puzzle. Now, there isn't exactly any indication of what to do with these, but fortunately the answer is pretty simple. You turn the right valve left twice and the left valve right once. And that's it. Enter the boss room and we find a body hung up in the middle that starts to burn. We'll come back to what this could mean later. After defeating the boss, which isn't super hard, a cutscene plays of an adult Alessa sitting in front of the boiler room, looking at Harry before disappearing. After the cutscene plays out, we hear a distant bell ringing out repeatedly. Harry questions who he saw, what he's doing in a boiler room, and what's going on.
What was that? Who in the hell was that?
If you go to where Alessa stood, there's a key that reads K. Gordon. If you read the list of teachers in front of the reception, Harry will mark down the location on the map. This basically leads us to another save point and some supplies. So far, I've mentioned Alessa and I've been super cryptic about meanings and symbolisms, and I've done this on purpose as I want those who've never played Silent Hill to wonder what the hell I'm talking about and go play the games. So if you want to experience the game for yourself, I'd recommend that you stop watching here, go pick up a physical copy of Silent Hill 1 and play it yourself. Your other option is to, of course, go use the classic duck station. A duck at a train station? A station of ducks? You know what I mean. The rest of the game and video will be a huge spoiler to the story, but if you've made it this far, please hit the like button, subscribe, and if you have any friends who are Silent Hill fans, please share this video with them, as it would be a huge help to the channel and make my dreams closer to a reality. After you grab the supplies and head to the church, we meet another character. The CGI's cutscene's always funny to me, because why does she turn around like that? Immediately, she tells us that our arrival was expected by gyromancy, and Harry's response will be pretty funny to me.
What are you talking about?
She's more cryptic as the scene goes on and rambles about a Floros being a cage of peace and tells us to go to the hospital. On the podium is a Floros which we have no choice but to pick up, and the drawbridge key. I'd like to point out that the footage you are viewing from here on out is a New Fear save, meaning it's New Game Plus essentially. New Fear doesn't do much besides spawn in a few extra monsters and bump up the difficulty. You also have a few new weapons you can choose from. If you go to the normally locked room in the doghouse on Lewis Street, you can find the katana, which is arguably the strongest melee weapon in the game. Like the hammer, when you ready yourself to swing the katana, you can't move, but most enemies die in 2 hits and you move forwards quite a distance, so it cancels itself out. From here, when you get to the gas station, you can find gasoline, which can be powered for one of 2 weapons, the chainsaw or the rock drill. In this playthrough, I used the gasoline on the chainsaw, so I didn't grab the rock drill. Once you have your new secret weapons, make your way to the drawbridge that you insert the key and get to the second side of Silent Hill. Once you cross, getting to the hospital is super easy as you just take a right and walk down until you eventually get to the hospital. The hospital is a lot shorter than Midwich, but isn't as linear. Once you enter the hospital, you hear a gunshot before entering the examination room. Dr. Kaufman stands on business as he almost shoots Harry and thanks God that he found another normal person. And once he leaves, we can go to the front counter, pick up a med kit, a save state, and the hospital map. There are a few items that we can find here within the first floor. In one of the office rooms, we can find a map to the hospital basement, and in the following room, a basement key. Before we go down there, we can enter the kitchen where we can find an empty water bottle, and upon entering another one of the offices, we find a ransacked one with drawers, cabinets opened, and books and papers littered about everywhere. When you make it to the opposite side of the desk, there's this red liquid on the floor which seems to have been smashed on purpose. We can scoop it up with the empty water bottle to have a container of unknown liquid, but for now, that's all we can pretty much do. Going down into the basement, we can turn on the generator, and once it's on, we can use the elevator to move our way up the 3 hospital floors. The second floor is locked, okay. Next floor also locked. Of 4th floor? I could have sworn there were only 3 floors. Yep, we're in the other world, just like that. We're in this weird 4th floor that doesn't exist on the elevator or anywhere else, and none of the rooms are accessible. But once we make our way downstairs, we can enter the west side of the 3rd floor, and we can finally encounter a new enemy type, the puppet nurse. They look normal, but they have this weird slug-looking thing on their back, and from my understanding, it's a parasite that's taken over the bodies of the nurses. Entering a completely empty room, we find a blue plate called the Plate of Turtle. Right before exiting the room, a loud noise is heard. There are a few other nurses in the other room, and you can find a plate of cat on the wall. In the storage room, we can find a blood pack, which we'll need in a moment, a med kit, and some bullets. The other door is jammed, so we'll have to go back into the hall. Entering one of the rooms, you find an empty bird cage, and that's it. In the next room, we find a save state and a TV. Oh, there's also some shotgun shells. There's a nurse in the following room, and you can find a health drink, steel plate on the wall that we can't interact with at the moment, and then we can take the elevator down to the 1st floor, as the 2nd floor is blocked off, so we'll have to go the long way around. Once you exit the elevator, you can check the vending machines for 3 free health drinks, and then we have our next enemy type, the Puppet Doctor. As far as I'm aware, this is the only male doctor that's an enemy in any Silent Hill game. Same deal with the nurses, however. Going down into the basement, we can find the hammer in the generator room. Now, if you're not on New Fear, this is the best melee weapon that you can get, and will kill most enemies in 2 or 3 swings. In the following room, we have an ampoule and a health drink. I missed the ampoule because I'm dumb and I didn't see it until after the recording, but that's beyond me. That's all we can do in the basement for now, so back upstairs we go. If you return to the director's office, you can pick up the Plate of Queen, which immediately after picking up, we hear a slam on the door. In the kitchen, we find another health drink. Skipping ahead to when you try to enter the examination room, we find that the door is locked, and we can hear a sound from the other side of the door. Heading upstairs into the 2nd floor, we can find a few more things we'll need. First, we'll find a room with tentacles that are trying to feed on a blood spot on the ground, and if we throw a blood pack that we found earlier, they'll get distracted and we can pick up the plate of Hatter that's on the wall right behind it. After that, we can enter a room and find a singular nurse. Once she's out of the way, a lighter can be picked up. Finally, we have the puzzle room that we've been getting pieces for. A note on the wall reads, "Clouds flowing over a hill, sky on a sunny day, tangerines that are bitter, lucky 4-leaf clover, violets in the garden, dandelions among a path, unavoidable sleeping time, liquid flowing from a slashed wrist." This puzzle is honestly really confusing, and I'll give you the quickest rundown. We're moving in a clockwise motion down the puzzle lines, and as it goes, blue, green, yellow, and red. So I haven't mentioned this, but these plates are all a reference to Alice in Wonderland. Queen, Hatter, it's pretty self-explanatory. Once past the door, we can find a basement store key. On the adjacent side, we find disinfecting alcohol. Going back to the elevator, we can go down to the basement storage area to pick up some bullets and move this giant shelf which reveals a hidden door. Inside of the room there are vines blocking a bunch of gates. Using the lighter on its own won't do anything, but when combined with the alcohol, can light the vines right up and open the passageway. Down here we find this weird, abandoned, dark hallway with 2 nurses. I mean, what could have been hiding down here? One of the rooms is completely empty, and the other one has a bloodied videotape that can be picked up. Interesting. Finally, we enter a room that looks like it's been used recently, and we find a picture of an adult Alessa, and next to it, the examination room key. Once we reach the examination room, we meet someone new. Lisa Garland, who's relieved to see another normal person. Harry questions her about the basement, but Lisa doesn't know anything about it, as they were told to not go near the basement.
Why? Is there something down there?
You don't know? Don't you work here?
We're under strict orders never to enter the basement storeroom. So I really don't know. What did you say was down there?
Well, it's... Damn! My head.
What's wrong? Harry? Harry, let me help you. Harry?
Before Harry could tell her what he found, he has a stroke and wakes up in the normal world examination room. Dahlia shows up and taunts Harry again before leaving us with the antique shop key.
It's you.
Yes, Dahlia Gillespie. Strength must overcome petty desire, childish sleep talk. I knew this day would come.
What are you talking about? I don't understand a word of this.
Believe the evidence of your eyes. The other church in this town, that is your destination. This is beyond my abilities. Only you can stop it now. Have you not seen the crest marked on the ground all over town?
So that's what I saw in the schoolyard. What does it mean?
It is the mark of Samael. Don't let it be completed.
Leaving the hospital is this really creepy soundtrack, which starts going off, which I can only describe as a whining that never ends. It's really unsettling, and there's no explanation as to why this plays. It just does. I mean, just listen to this. If we make a quick stop at the police station, we can find some more supplies and a blackboard that's been written on. Product only available in selected areas of Silent Hill. Raw material is White Claudia, a plant peculiar to the region. Manufactured here, dealer equals manufacturer. And then a memo on the desk that reads, Coroner Seals called. Officer Gucci is unlikely to be murdered. He apparently died naturally, but medical records show Officer Gucci had no prior symptoms of heart disease. There's a save state here as well, but from what we can gather, there seems to be some sort of drug being spread around Silent Hill, but more information regarding this will be found later. Entering the antique shop, Harry stands on business as he immediately pulls his gun out on Sybil, who opens a door behind him. She updates us that all roads are blocked, cars don't run, and nothing seems to be working. She finds Cheryl and insinuates that she walked on air.
It was like she was walking on thin air. What about you? Anything?
But also admits that there's a drug issue going on that the local police have yet to be able to figure out. Harry mentions the other world, but Sybil simply tells him that he's tired. Harry enters the hole on the wall, and on the other side we can find an axe and a shrine dedicated to Samael. Inside the chalice seems to be some form of powder, but before leaving, the shrine seems to light itself on fire. Sybil makes her way through to the other side, but by the time she gets there, we're gone. Harry wakes back up in the Otherworld hospital in front of Lisa, who now has a completely different demeanor about her. She tells us about a cult founded in the town years ago, and we wake up in this Otherworld antique shop. Harry questions his sanity and says he could just be lying in a hospital after the car crash and isn't quite sure what's real anymore. He also wants to go ask Lisa if she knows any other way to get to the lake. The roads are made of chain link fence, and many roads are blocked off. Otherworld Silent Hill is even more confusing and way less forgiving. Honestly, treat this section like you would any other indoor section where we turn off the flashlight and just try our best to avoid enemies. The only way to get to the hospital is by entering the trade center. Once entering, the stack of TV screens on the right will begin to flicker and play a creepy video of Cheryl, and afterwards a bunch of symbols will be on the TV. As to what these symbols mean, I honestly have no clue. I've done a bit of research, but I have no conclusive answers, so I'll just assume it's some religious cult stuff. Going up the stairs, you can enter a jewelry store which has some supplies. Heading out to the store and towards the radio static will lead you into a boss room. This boss is super easy, just spam shotgun ammo at it and it dies relatively quickly. Once you beat it, it'll make a run out of the trade center, and that's our way out. But before you leave, make sure you grab the hunting rifle on the shelf behind you, as this could very easily be missed. Finally, once we're out of the trade center, we can make our way to the hospital. Once there, we get into a cutscene with Lisa where she tells us that there's a way to the lake via the sewers.
Lisa, can you tell me how to get to the lake?
The lake? You take Bachman Road.
The road's blocked. There's gotta be another way.
Wait! I just remembered something! There's a waterworks over by my old elementary school. There's an underground tunnel out there used for inspections or something. I remember hearing it runs all the way to the lake.
She begs Harry to stay, and Harry basically tells her, nah, I gotta grab my daughter.
I'll be back as soon as I find my daughter.
Harry?
Exiting the hospital, the road is blocked off on both sides and our only option is to go to the roof of the following building. Here we have a giant moth boss fight, but to be honest, I don't remember this thing having as much health as it does here, but the fight is pretty simple. If you go to the stairs where I went, there's a good chance the AI will glitch out and just let you attack it without getting hit by it, with the exception of the ranged spitting attack that it does. Once you kill it, the Otherworld seems to end and everything goes back to normal. If we try to check up on Lisa again, we find that she's not there. What could this mean, I wonder? Making our way back to Midwich after crossing the bridge, the game teleports you in front of the sewer entrance. I'm honestly thankful for this, as we do walk around a punch, so this is probably the one time I wouldn't complain about a game teleporting me somewhere. The sewer level is insanely annoying as we encounter a new enemy type called the Hanged Scratcher. The layout of the sewer doesn't make much sense overall, and it isn't my favorite part of the game. It's pretty simple and straightforward to get through, but enemy placement and AI make it more annoying than it has to be. After picking up the map and the key, we can head to the other side of the sewer near where we entered. Inserting the key, we gain access to the other side of the sewers, and the ambiance here is fairly quiet with the sound of some monster yelling off in the distance. Honestly, it's probably the weakest point in the entire game. Yet again, I really dislike this section, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. After a bit of running, we get to the second floor of the sewers, and here we have to pick up another key that will lead to the exit door that we need to go through. This key is in the water surrounded by a bunch of blood, and when we try to pick it up, the Scratchers try to jump Harry. Immediately, we have to rush and make our way back as new enemies spawned and... God damn it. Well, the gate got blocked by them and I got swarmed. Fortunately, we got our trusty shotty here, and god damn, they're fucking me up. Alright, now that that's done, we can finally move on. Entering the next and final room, we can save and go up the last ladder to get out of the sewer. Exiting the sewers, the game treats us with that classic silent ambiance. We're outside of this completely broken down house of sorts, there are some supplies nearby, and we can pick up a map right in front of the house. Welcome to the resort. This section is a little bit longer, and the only really agitating thing about this area are the rompers. Immediately, we can head to Annie's bar and find Kaufman being attacked by a mumbler. We save him and ask him if he knows Alessa. He simply responds,
"No,"
and leaves. Alright then. We find his wallet on the ground with a receipt with some numbers on it and a key. Really quick, before we move on from this, a fun fact about the mumblers is that Greychilds are not present in the European versions of this game. This includes the Asian market, where the mumblers replace the Greychilds completely. I think they look a little creepier than the normal Greychilds, so I wish they would have kept them specific to the Otherworld portion of Midwich. But yeah, back to the gameplay. Afterwards, we can head to the Indian Runner, where I fuck up the lock combination and get absolutely mollywopped by the rompers. Once inside, there are a few things we can find, namely ammo, a health drink, and a notepad. There's a safe on the floor, and if you open the drawer behind the counter, we can find a key for the drawer. When we open the safe, we find drugs. Interesting. On the right here is a note that contains the code for the motel. Inside of the motel there are a few things, namely a magnet, a motorcycle, and a shelf that can be pushed to find a key that we need the magnet for. When we get the key from the shelf and use it on the motorcycle, we open up the gas tank and find a vial, similar to the one that was destroyed in the hospital. At this moment, Kaufman walks in and snatches the vial from our hands.
"That's none of your business. You want to get yourself killed? Get out of here. Unless you want to die, keep your mind on business. Got it?"
After threatening us, he walks out and we're back to looking for Cheryl. Next stop, the lighthouse.
What's this?
Passing through the bridge, reality shifts.
Oh!
Rather than shifting from reality to a nightmare, this is more like reality becoming a nightmare. And just like that, we're stuffed right back into the Otherworld version of the resort, and we have to make our way to the lighthouse. On the way there, we stop by a boat, and inside we see Sybil. After telling Sybil that we're not completely nuts and that the worlds are merging, Dahlia comes into the room and spews more religious ramblings.
Harry, hold on a minute. I don't get it.
Look, I don't understand it all myself. I guess I can't explain it.
Well, what's making this happen?
I don't know that either. But I do know Cheryl is there.
There?
Under whoever created this darkness. Cheryl is somewhere and she needs my help.
The demon is awakening, spreading those wings.
Dahlia Gillespie.
Was it not as I said? I see it all now. Yes, everything. Hungry for sacrifice, the demon will swallow up the land. I knew this day would come. And what's more, the task is almost finished. There's only two left. to seal this town to the abyss, the mark of Samael. When it is completed, all is lost. Even in daytime, darkness will cover the sun. The dead will walk, and martyrs will burn in the fires of hell. Everyone will die.
So what am I supposed to do? I've got to save Cheryl.
It is simple. Stop the demon. The demon taking that child's form. Stop it before your daughter becomes a sacrifice. Before it is too late. Stop it! Stop it!
What do I do?
Go to the lighthouse on the lake. And to the center of the amusement park. Make haste. You are the only hope.
Look, Harry. I really don't get what's going on. But if there's a chance we can save your daughter, I'm in. I'll check out the amusement park. You go to the lighthouse.
Sybil, thanks.
You will need to use it.
Use what?
The flowers. Only with that can you stop it.
What about Sybil?
Entering the lighthouse, we go up this really cool spiral staircase where the camera is placed in the center. Reaching the top of the lighthouse, we see Alessa's ghost fade away. Getting back to the ship, we find that Sybil hasn't returned and we must now go and check up on her in the amusement park. The only way to get there is by going through the sewers again. Sybil gets knocked out and we have another mark on the floor. This section is really straightforward and it doesn't really look any different than the standard sewer level. At most, the sewer is slightly more grimy and rustic, but that's it. Climbing out of the sewers, we land in the amusement park. There are a few gray childs here, but the primary enemy type we see are the peaceful larval stalkers. I didn't talk about these guys earlier, but they appear in Midwich and they're pretty silly. They just fall over and kinda mind their own business. Making your way through the park, we get to the carousel where we find Sybil, who now has red eyes and shoots at us. Immediately using the red liquid we got way earlier in the game ends this fight, and we kill the parasite that took over Sybil's body. Sybil and Harry talk about Cheryl and how his wife was sick, and Cheryl is not his real daughter.
But, you know, Cheryl isn't my biological daughter. I actually haven't told her yet. She probably already knows anyway, though. We found her abandoned on the side of the highway. Nobody knew where she came from. We didn't have any kids of our own. My wife was sick, and it didn't look like she was getting any better. So we took Cheryl in.
Confronting Alessa, Harry simply asked for his daughter back, and Alessa just force pushes Harry. The Flaros, sitting in our pocket the whole time, activates and shoots a beam at Alessa, which seems to weaken her powers. Dahlia shows up, and it's revealed that Dahlia has been using us the entire time to capture Alessa.
Dahlia Gillespie? Where's Cheryl? Where is she?
Alessa, this is the end of your little game.
Mama?
Could she be...
You've been a ghastly little pest, haven't you, Alessa? I was careless, thinking you couldn't escape from our spell. But Mommy didn't know how much you'd grown. That's why I couldn't catch you all by myself. But what a pity, yes? Now you're half indebted to this man for his help.
Hey, what are you talking about?
Alessa, my dear little girl, there is one thing left I need you to do for me.
No! Get away from me!
Bad girl. Everything is ready. Let's go home.
What's going on here?
We wake up in the hospital with Lisa, who again has a completely different demeanor about her.
Where's Alessa and Dahlia?
Harry, listen. Something you said before has been bothering me. I just can't get it out of my head.
She tells us she's explored the basement and tells us that she feels as if she'd been down there but couldn't quite figure out what happened.
Like you said, there were these creepy rooms. But nothing really unusual down there. But while I was down there, I got this weird feeling. Like I'd been there before. Like something happened there. But I can't quite remember somehow.
Harry attempts to reassure her, but to no avail. She runs off, and we're left to explore the hospital.
You don't understand.
Wait! Where do you think you're going? I'm being summoned. What happened in this town? What could be making things like this? I have a feeling if I take the elevator down, I'll find it. Cheryl.
Welcome to the true nightmare. The end of the road. We're in the hospital. The empty bird cage is making ruffling noises, and doors lead us to the antique shop? Every door is locked in some way or form, and if they are unlocked, they lead to places that wouldn't normally make sense. Going downstairs into the basement, we find the classroom from Midwich, with a singular desk in the middle. We find scratched phrasings that read, "Go home," "thief," "drop dead," and it's clear that someone was bullied. Exiting the other side of the classroom, we come across the surgery room from earlier, this time with pliers and a screwdriver. Going into the room that looks like a padded cell, we use the pliers on the pipeline that's holding a key. The key of Ophiel. Using that key on the door with the same marking leads us to another section of the hospital. Here, there are a few puzzles. One is simply requiring us to name the amount of appendages that are in the pictures, and doing so will give us the Stone of Time. The other puzzle is quite simple, needing us to only sort out the first letter in every patient's name from youngest to oldest, spelling out alert. Going inside, the room is empty. Following through the other door, we find a symbol on the wall, the Amulet of Solomon. Exiting the room, however.
Harry?
Lisa, what's the matter with you?
I get it now. Why I'm still alive even though everyone else is dead. I'm not the only one who's still walking around. I'm the same as them. I just hadn't noticed it before.
Lisa.
Stay by me, Harry. Please. I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry?
Lisa.
Lisa is dead, horribly so, and entering the room again we can find a diary on the ground. Ask doctor to let me quit being in charge of that patient. It's too weird, still alive but with wounds that won't heal. Told the doctor I quit, won't work at that hospital anymore. The room is filled with insects, even doors and windows shut, they get in to spite me. Feeling bad, need to throw up, but nothing comes out. Vomiting only bile. Blood and pus flow from the bathroom faucet. I try to stop it, but it won't turn off. Need drug. Help me. I could go into detail about what this means, but I'm going to wait just a little bit more before I explain anything. Going to the antique shop and inserting the Stone of Time into the grandfather clock gives us the key of Haggith, another section to nowhere. Here we can enter the jewelry store and find the Crest of Mercury and the Ring of Contract. Plus an extremely eerie soundtrack. In another room, we find a camera. Now, fun fact about this, I never found this item, not in the first 2 playthroughs of this game. Admittedly, I looked up the answer for the puzzle that this camera needs, but I was dumbfounded at finding this item as I thought it was a new fear item, but no, I'm just really blind. Next, we find the plate on the wall from earlier. Taking it off with the screwdriver reveals a key that's wrapped around in some live electricity. Taking the elevator to the 3rd floor, we see a ghost of Alessa kneeling before an altar. 2 pictures side by side. One reading "The Light to the Future" and the other "The Light Illuminating the Darkness." The context clues are pretty easy here. Use the camera you find and the symbols that have to be toggled onto the slabs on the wall. Entering the door to the left, the bird cage key can be found. Entering the door on the right is just a health drink. I'm not sure if I missed anything in this room, but if I did, please drop a comment letting me know. Returning to the bird cage and inserting the key, we receive the key of Phaleg, and the rustling inside of the cage stops. Entering the room of Phaleg, we find the final enemy type in the game, the Stalker. They have more HP and do more damage than the standard Grey Child. These guys are the adult form of the larval stalkers we found earlier. Entering one of the rooms, we find a cabinet. Interacting with the cabinet will reveal a broken chain and then prompt us to take the dagger of Melchior. Taking it will result in the only instant death that I know of in this game. To not die, you use the ring to bind the 2 chains and then take the dagger. The adjacent room has manic writings all over the wall and a crying ghost of Alessa. On the wall, the Ankh can be taken, and looking around the room, words like kill and help can be found everywhere. The opposing room has a bag of jelly beans and prompts the question. Now, the first time I came across this, I had no idea what to expect. I paused for a moment and just wondered what would happen if I opened the bag. Especially after dying to a cabinet monster from earlier, I was petrified. It's an amazing show of game design, and throwing something so nonchalant as a bag of jelly beans after seeing religious symbols, monsters, and only supplies throughout the entirety of the game is out of place in the best way possible. Damn it, Harry, now they're everywhere. So much for a snack. Oh, and Kia Bethor. In the next room, we find the VCR, and entering the tape found way earlier in the game,
What is it? Still has an unusually high fever. Eyes don't open. Getting a pulse, but just barely breathing. Her skin is all charred. Even when I change the bandages, the blood and pus just start oozing through. Why? What is keeping that child alive? I can't stand it any longer. I won't tell a soul. Promise. So please.
we find the final piece of evidence that I was waiting for. Lisa was the nurse looking after Alessa, and it seems that taking care of her was damaging Lisa's mental health, promising that she won't tell anyone about her experiences at the hospital. Even if she hadn't told anyone about what she saw, it didn't matter. Her existence, her knowledge of everything relating to the White Claudia, to Alessa, was a threat. It was a threat to the religious order, and it was a threat to Kaufman's production of the PTV. While it's not clear as to how she died, if we look at how Kaufman reacted during the resort area of the game, we can infer that he was the one to kill Lisa Garland, as she was hooked on the PTV and became reliant on it, her diary revealing that she was having withdrawals. The fact that we only ever see Lisa in a dream state in the other world is also always strange. The only times that we interact with her, we end up waking up somewhere else or finding ourselves not allowed to re-enter the area that she's in. Earlier, when I checked the hospital after the moth fight, was my hint to you, the viewer, that my suspicion is that she's in nowhere. She's always been trapped in nowhere. She's in a plane that we can't directly interact with. My theory on this is also guided by the cutscene that we had with Sybil in the antique shop, where Harry states that it was all a blur, almost like a hallucination. It was almost like he was there, but not really.
It's like I was there, but not really. It's all a blur, like some kind of hallucination, you know?
The reason she begins to bleed out of every orifice is because of the effects of the White Claudia, which is shown to cause that via the parasite. There's a hint in another cutscene when Harry wakes up and Lisa's eye twitches. She mentions that she's just like the others.
Why I'm still alive even though everyone else is dead. I'm not the only one who's still walking around. I'm the same as them. I just hadn't noticed it before.
This is the dark story of Lisa Garland, abused and murdered.
I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry?
In the last room, we're transported again to a child's room. A varied species of butterflies on the wall, Alessa's dress on the wall, and drawings littering the floor. Inspecting the door, it reads, "Thou possess them to guard thy spirit. Evoke 5 rites, unveil thy fate." We'll return here shortly. Using the key of Bethor, we can turn off the generator and move our way to the electrified key from earlier. Picking it up reveals the final key we need, the key of Aratron.
Everything is going according to plan, sheltered in the womb.
But it's not done yet. Half the soul is lost. That is why the seed lies dormant.
And what soul remains captured in that husk is buried deep down in the subconscious.
Are you trying to say it won't work? That wasn't our agreement.
No, these are just stalling tactics. If we lend a hand, we will be able to get power. Never fear, the promise shall not be broken.
But the power we could draw now will be very weak. Almost nothing. Unless we get the other half of the soul.
We'll use a magical spell. Feeling this child's pain, it's sure to come.
But that will take time.
It is revealed that Alessa is only half of herself, with her other half being Cheryl. Dahlia states she'll use a magical spell to draw her other half out, which clearly worked. On the desk, we find a disc of Ouroboros, and entering the child's room again, we can insert all of the religious items we have thus found onto the door. Here, we see a cutscene between a kid Alessa begging her mom that she just wants to be with her, and Dahlia spouting religious nonsense at a child. Dahlia states that she could have done it all by herself, and then they both fade away.
A teeny bit of your power, that's all. No, I don't want to do it. It will make everyone happy, and it's for your own good, too.
Oh, but Mommy, I just want to be with you. Just 2 of us. Please understand.
Oh, yes, I see. Maybe Mommy has been wrong.
Mommy!
Why didn't I see this before? There's no reason to wait. Herein lies the mother's womb, containing the power to create life. I could have done it all myself.
Mommy?
Descending the staircase, Dahlia reveals to Harry that Cheryl was another form of Alessa this entire time, and points at the burned body of Alessa and Alessa's reincarnation. Alessa had a cruel childhood bestowed upon her, being born for a single purpose, to become the mother of God. Heavily bullied and experimented upon to create an environment toxic enough to form the manifestation of the incubus. Burned alive by her own mother and forced to be alive through unknown and mysterious ways. It's easy to see why the Grey Childs are depicted the way they are, why Alessa's fear of dogs makes the Groaners appear, and the Air Screamer's manifestation after Alessa reads her favorite book, The Lost World. Creepers showing her dislike for insects, the Rompers enabling her fear of adults pushing themselves on top of you. The crying in the bathroom can only be assumed to be Alessa. The strange doll room that we had found earlier had gurneys that come straight out of the hospital, representing that she never had a safe space to be in, more so emphasized by the crucified dolls on the wall. But maybe that's a stretch. After Dahlia's rambling, Alessa's body forms together and becomes holy. Dahlia immediately gets shot by Kaufman, who comes from the shadows and is quite pissed. He pulls out the Aglaophotis and absolutely beams it at Alessa. The whole scene speaks for itself.
Return things to how they were before.
Kaufman!
Did I ask for this? Nobody uses me. You won't get away with this.
Your role is over. We don't need you anymore. What do you think you could accomplish by coming here?
My, aren't we getting cocky? Bet you can't see this.
Glove-it-is! I thought I got rid of that!
All I had to do was plant it somewhere for you to find. You all, well, it kept you busy. Ha! You're easy. And there's more where this came from.
Stop it!
Dahlia begins to laugh maniacally, and thus, God is born, burning Dahlia alive, killing her for good. This fight on hard New Fear is absolutely unforgiving. I have no idea how the hell you're supposed to do this normally, but here we go. Get hit, pause, heal, get hit, pause, heal, shoot, rinse, repeat. I actually had to pull out my gamer stand for this one because holy hell, this fight is insane. The soundtrack here makes your skin crawl, especially if you're sensitive to loud screeching, piercing sounds. After killing the incubus, Alessa returns to her normal form and all hell breaks loose. Fire begins falling from the skies, and in her final gasping attempt at life, she rebirths a new baby, a new beginning, an attempt at a normal childhood. Harry picks up the reincarnation and runs out with Sybil. Kaufman attempts to follow but gets dragged back by Lisa's parasitic form, ultimately damning him to an eternity in hell. The abuser fights back and wins. Alessa stops the fire from raining down in a desperate attempt to let Harry and Sybil escape with the reincarnation before finally allowing the flames to consume her. The track Tears of slowly reels in, and the volume increasing as they run out into the fog and the game's credits begin to roll. If you've watched this far, please leave a comment below and discuss with me your thoughts on anything that I potentially missed. I thank you for sticking with me throughout this video, however, we're not done just yet. If you get the bad ending like I did on my first playthrough, Alessa never transforms into the Incubus. Killing her, you hear Cheryl thanking Harry and saying goodbye, and Harry's guilt and anguish keeps him in that perpetual hell, and it's revealed that Harry died in the car crash. If you get the bad plus ending, Harry still kills Cheryl, but this time Sybil and Harry both stay together. The ending that we got was the good plus ending, which is obtainable by saving Kaufman and locating the glass vial in the motorcycle. Saving Sybil after the fact locks us into the good plus ending, where we see Harry and Sybil standing side by side holding the reincarnation of Alessa. There's also the joke ending, which can be achieved by using the channeling stone in certain areas of the game. Aliens and UFOs come and abduct Harry.
Sorry. Let me ask you, have you seen a little girl around here? Short, black hair?
As for the standard good ending, well, we'll have to come back to that another time, don't we?
What a nightmare.
I don't know why Silent Hill 1 isn't talked about more often. It's an amazing game with wonderful levels of game design, sound design, and love poured into it. And I hope that this video may have given people some more appreciation for the first game in the series. So, thank you for watching. This is my first video essay or retrospective, and I had no idea how to tackle this, but regardless, I hope you found it enjoyable and will give you a reason to return in the future.